Here we are in the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. People come here for peace and quiet. Obviously there's no peace and quiet because of this construction mania where they're trying to keep people employed as the private sector goes down the gurgler. That's another story, which I'll talk about maybe next week or the week after. Also, let's not forget this is the Royal Botanical Gardens, so I think I should really acknowledge where we are. This is one of the most important, well, it was the most important site for the Kulin nation. This is a nation of Aboriginal people that have been here for over 60,000 years that stretched all the way from Wilson's Promontory right up to the Murray River. 5 distinct groups within one nation, and this is the site, this is the exact site where the 5 groups met as a federation to iron out their differences, do ceremony, lock in agreements, work out laws. This was an exceptionally important site. It's quite ironic that we now have the Royal Botanical Gardens, that the actual people who destroyed this civilization or attempted to destroy this civilization now own it. Now this is also an important site because in February 1839, 17 Tasmanian Aborigines from the 89 survivors that were left on Flinders Island were brought across to civilise the Victorian blacks. And in February 1839, there were fireworks here and there was great feasting, and there was intermingling between Aboriginal people from the Kulin nation plus the invaders. Now the Aboriginal people at this time had been decimated, and they refused to eat the food that was presented to them initially because they were worried about being poisoned, because poison was the weapon of choice for the squatters as they expanded across Victoria. So this is a very important sacred site. It's also an important site in terms of the housing struggle, believe it or not, because after the Second World War, returned servicemen and servicewomen lived on this site in tents because they were homeless, and it was the push from returned servicemen and women who'd fought for this country which led to the establishment of the Victorian Housing Commission, which has now almost been destroyed by successive Liberal National Party and Labor governments. But again, that's not the source of why we're here. I think parks are important because they ground us in the reality that we are basically part of nature. We are just another species on the planet. We are part of nature. And something extraordinary has happened over the last 3 to 4 months around the world, which nobody seems to have picked up, or very few people have picked up. We are in the midst of a children's revolution, which is as important as the revolt of the youth, which occurred in the mid-60s and late 1960s around the Western world. But this children's revolution is occurring across the world. I'll give you 4 simple examples about what's happening today. In Indonesia, just less than 100 kilometres from Australia's borders, in Indonesia, tens of thousands of students, high school students, university students, have been protesting against 3 things. They've been protesting against laws which dilute the Anti-Corruption Commission, which they have there, which is doing a good job over the last few years. They're protesting against draconian Islamic Sharia-like laws which the government wants to introduce to control personal behaviour. They want to codify personal behaviour and criminalise what they think is aberrant behaviour, like sex out of marriage. Obviously that is aberrant. I'm sure none of you practiced that before you got married. That's another story. Then they're protesting against the election of a government which has just been elected, which is willing to pursue this agenda to appease a minority of Muslim fundamentalists who've got control over Parliament in Indonesia. So we've got children going out there, high school students, because they want a different world. Now, if this was an isolated example, we wouldn't be concerned. But let's move on. In West Papua, in the last 2 months, we've seen a rebellion which has been simmering for 60 years, slowly coming to the fore and bursting into flames across the Indonesian province of West Papua. And again, this revolt has been led by children and young people who see that their future does not lie with the future of the Indonesian people. They want to be independent. They want their nation to be independent. And they've paid the ultimate price. While 3 students have died in Indonesia, been killed in these protests, over 50, possibly up to 100 West Papuans have died in the protests that have occurred in the last 2 months. Then you've got the situation in Hong Kong, where the Hong Kong students again, and high school students, university students, commercial students to a large degree, are the ones who are on the streets every weekend raising their concerns about authoritarian government, raising their concerns about having their future mapped out for them by an authoritarian regime, which again, it's not religious based, but it's based on the centralisation of power in the hands of a very small minority. And they come out week after week after week. And then we saw last week, or it could have been the week before, we saw hundreds of thousands of high school students mainly, and university students and TAFE college students go out on the question of climate change. They were involved in this protest. Now these are not protests that we have seen which are about franking credits or about money in their pockets. These are protests which are concerned with fundamental aspects of existence. Things like the freedom to express your opinion, the freedom of assembly, the freedom to see what you like. These are protests about not criminalising normal human behaviour, accepting the diversity of human behaviour, not codifying laws to criminalise. And then with the climate protests, what we have seen is we have seen children coming out because they know, not believe, they know that their future will be compromised if we continue on this growth for growth's sake merry-go-round, which has resulted in this current climate emergency. Now, this is what happens when you're in the natural environment. You get a mosquito in your eye. This is live TV, folks. Live. Now that poor little thing has sacrificed itself for you. So keep on watching. So we are in the midst of a children's revolution. Sudan, the Sudanese revolution a few months ago, was led by young people. Over 200 were killed. Egypt, we saw last week, again, students taking to the streets. And these are not revolts that are about money. These are not revolts which are about, franking credits or dividend imputations or whatever other tax thing you can do. This is about real things. How people are going to live, how they're going to interact, the freedoms they enjoy, and the power the state has them. This is about trying to contain the arbitrary exercise of state power. This is about putting the individual initially before state power and putting the collective survival before the need to generate profits. So these are radical struggles, irrespective, and the thing about these radical struggles is they've missed 2 generations. These are the grandchildren of the rebels of '68 who have become the system, who have to a significant degree, lined their pockets, who have forgotten the history of '68. These are their grandchildren who are saying, what have you done? All you're interested in is yourself. You're not interested in anything apart from yourself. You're not interested in the environment. You're not interested in the world. You're not interested in your neighbour. All you're interested in is your franking credits and your superannuation dividends. That's all you're interested in. You're not interested in our future. We are your flesh and blood. We are your children's children. And you deny us a future in order for you to enjoy yourself now without thinking about tomorrow. You're a little bit like Jiminy Cricket, jumping around, enjoying himself until winter comes. And then winter comes, you expect us to look after you. Well, you have destroyed our future. And it's up to you to begin that struggle to repair that future. And that's what young people, children, are saying to us. Kids under 20, some paying the ultimate price in repressive regimes around the globe. They are saying to us, Now is the time to act. Now is the time to think about the future. Now is the time to think about our future. Now is the time to work with us to change what is happening around the globe. Now is that time. And the extraordinary thing about this is that young people have broken through the spectacle. They've broken through the digital bubble. They've understood it doesn't matter how much you know, who you know, what you watch, who you talk to in the digital world, that ultimately political decisions and social decisions and cultural change occurs on the streets. When you challenge power, when you challenge those in authority, when you challenge the structures they have created to maintain their power. They have understood a lesson that other generations have not understood, that the virtual world is just that, a virtual spectacle that has little to contribute to human survival. So they've done three things. They've understood the situation because of the virtual world. They have been able to organise because of the virtual world. But most importantly of all, they've understood that this is just a spectacle, that you need to break out of that bubble. You need to burst the bubble, go on the streets and put your demands down and use your body to promote those demands. And if we ignore what our children are telling us, if we're more interested in our superannuation balance and what nursing home we're going to go to, whether it's 5-star or 4-star or 3-star, or our franking credit returns, as we were, because we are the majority in Australian society, we are the majority who had the votes to change things. We decided to maintain the status quo, decided to deny the climate emergency, decided to pocket our 30 pieces of silver. That's what the decision is today. We pocketed those 30 pieces of silver. And if you know your history, if you know your New Testament, our great friend, the man who pocketed those 30 pieces of silver, Judas, hung himself when he realised what he had done. We don't need to hang ourselves to give our grandchildren a future. What we need to do is listen to them and join them in the struggle against our own children who've been imbued, who've been covered, who've in the culture of corporate capitalism, in the culture of creating profits irrespective of the human, social, environmental consequences. This is a culture war. It's more than a culture war. It's a war of survival. And the dilemma is that if you and I don't join these young people, we don't join these young people, we stop tutting about them missing school or being involved in a protest, then we deserve everything that will happen to us as a species in the near future. So listen to the children. What else can I say? They seem to understand the emperor has no clothes. Everybody else who's part of the system like we are bows and scrapes and says what a glorious man the emperor is. But the children say, Granddad, Grandma, Nonno, Nonna, they've got no clothes on. They've got no clothes on. What are you worshipping? They're just human beings. Come to your senses. So come to your senses. Join the children-led revolution. Remove the stains of the past. Remove the stigmatas of the past. Jesus Christ had his stigmatas. We as a society have our stigmata, and that's allowing corporate capitalism, the desire to generate ever-increasing profits, irrespective of the human, social, environmental and national costs, to be our mantra, to be our mammon. We need to listen to the children of this world who are telling us we need to go down a different path. Thank you for listening. Next week, most likely something pretty boring, not as exciting as the children's revolution which we are witnessing today.